How y'all doing? This is Cascadia Coast News. Uh, Here's an update on the magazine ban that died. It passed the crossover date. In other words, the date that they were supposed to vote on this bill, which they didn't, and it died. But now they got a new one. They made a new bill, and it is, go to their page, House Bill 2947. And it is establishing firearms related safety measures. So basically, it's the same thing, but it's a different bill. It's worded different. And as of Friday, February 21st, 2020, at 1:40 p.m., it's introduced and is going to the committee, where they're going to try to pass this bill. I'm going to read what was on Q13 Fox, what they said about this. New gun control legislation filed after bills failed to advance in Olympia. After they knew that they weren't going to get the votes for it, they're going to try everything that they can to get this bill in place. Because, you can't have an armed populace and have their little tyrannical new world order come to pass. Okay, Olympia, Washington. Both the Senate and House started Wednesday morning with more than 200 bills on their agendas. You hear that, people? More than 200 additional bills that they are trying to impose on us, the subjects, because that's what they think of us as no more than slaves. Legislation ranging from gun control, workers' rights, and others had stalled. Lawmakers had until 5 p.m. Wednesday to get their bills passed, which they didn't. House Bill 2240, aimed at limiting the number of bullets a gun could hold, saw heated debate. Senate Bill 6294, which would mandate concealed carry permit holders to undergo mandatory training and other requirements, also was debated heavily this session. In other words, they're having a major backlash at these bills, but they're still trying to push it on the people anyways. And then you got ignorant people, or ignorant news agencies such as the Washington Examiner, saying that 2/3 of the Washingtonians want this bill. No, we don't. Nobody wants this crap. Except, okay, maybe if you're a socialistic, Democrat loving citizen, then yeah, you would want such a thing. Which, if they weren't so dumbed down by the re-education that they're trying to promote in this country, they would realize that they're going against the very foundations of this country in the first place. Anyways, lawmakers were unable to move either bill out of the respective chambers before the deadline passed. On Thursday, Representative Javier Valdez, of course, a Democrat from Seattle, King County. I'm really starting to hate King County because they're the majority of the reason, besides down in Vancouver and Tacoma and Olympia, that this kind of bullshit is passing in the first place. It was introduced They introduced a different version of a bill to ban the sale of high-capacity magazines. The new bill, House Bill 2947, includes a magazine buyback program, which makes the bill eligible to be considered throughout the session. In other words, there is no deadline for this bill. It's going to be considered through this whole session. This is exactly what they wanted, was no deadline for the bill, so they can try to convince everybody to want this unconstitutional bill, which is exactly what it is. It's unconstitutional. Who in the hell is the government to tell us citizens what we can and cannot have in the first place? If the federal government, if the United States government, the government of America, is supposed to be a government for the people and by the people, it's not looking like it is so. It's looking more like a police state dictatorship, kind of like Nazi Germany and Russia. So my advice is to y'all is get your heads out of your asses. If you live in Washington State, especially, stop watching the stupid ass football. I know it's past the Super Bowl, but stop watching all these dumbass freaking crap that they bring out to try to distract you from what's really going on. Is what I'm saying. Now I'm going to read what they said on the NRA website. Washington new mag ban introduced. Despite the bills to ban standard capacity magazines, which is what it is, they're not high capacity magazines, they're standard equipment for a rifle such as an AK or an AR-15, which AR does not stand for assault rifle 15. It's Armalite rifle. But you got these dumbasses who don't know a damn thing about guns saying, oh, they're assault rifles. That's what the AR stands for. No, it's an abbreviation for Armalite rifle. Gosh, these people are freaking stupid. Yeah, I said that. I don't give a crap. Okay, back to where we were. Okay, standard capacity magazines failing to meet the crossover deadline. Anti-gun legislators are playing procedural games in an attempt to resurrect this legislation. They introduced House Bill 2947 with much of the same language as the previous bill. Oh, plus a buyback. Oh yeah, they want to buy back something that they didn't buy in the first place. Yeah, not only are they going to say, hey, you guys can't have such a thing, we're going to buy it back from you with the taxpayers' money. It's not going to be out of their own money. It's going to be with taxpayers' money. This is bullcrap. The buyback provision in order to make this an appropriations bill that is not subject to the same deadlines. Additionally, the title of the bill has changed in an effort to limit amendments on the floor. In other words, amendments that the Republicans can do to try to debate this bill is what it is. House Bill 2947 bans the manufacture, possession, sale, transfer, etc. of magazines that hold more than 15 rounds of ammunition. It appropriates the funds for the State Patrol to conduct a buyback, such turn-in events serve as nothing more than a propaganda for gun control advocates while failing to promote public safety in the first place. It does not promote public safety. Criminals are going to still have illegal guns in the first place. They're still going to have these so-called large capacity magazines. They're not going to turn theirs in. What this is another burden placed on the law-abiding citizens' shoulders. Go read Matthew 23 from the Bible. Matthew 23 strictly states, and yes, the scribes and the Pharisees in Jesus' day were the church and the government, and and that was written for us in our day, this end-time generation which we are in. And what did Christ say that they did? They put burdens on people's shoulders, and they themselves do not take one of their fingers to lift them off of people's shoulders. They say, and they do not. They just keep on placing burden. But they don't follow the own laws that they create. These people have armed guards for a reason, okay? They lived in fenced and gated communities for a reason. It's for security measures. But they think that their subjects, which are us, their slaves, should not be allowed to have such things. Why? Because it's basically the same thing that happened in Egypt when the children of Israel were there for 400 years in slavery and bondage. Because they think that they are better than the people. That's exactly what they are. They think that they're better than everyone else. That they're higher than everyone else. That's why they call themselves the elite. Oh, we're the elite of the people. We're the rich and we're the powerful, and you'll do as we say. That's exactly the kind of shit they're trying to promote. Now, we're going to go read this bill. Okay. House Bill 2947, 2019 through the 2020 legislative session. This is exactly what this means right here. Sponsors: Valdez, Kilduff, Sin, Peterson, Doglio, Orwell, Wallen, and Berquist. And you know what? I am going to dig as much as I can into what these people have done as I can and I will be putting every single damn thing I can find about these tyrants on my channel as possible. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Okay, it's in the House right now. It's been introduced. It's going to the committee. It's exactly what is going on right now. If you want to watch the video on it, which, you know, it's not going to be up until, I don't know when they're going to have this up, the video, the actual proceedings, but they will eventually. But bill history as of 2020 regular session, February 21st, first reading, referred to finance, and you can view the original bill right here, which we're going to do. And, oh, did I don't, yeah, I read that anyways. State of Washington, 66th Legislature, 2020 regular session. And then it says the people who sponsored the bill. 1. An act relating to establishing firearms-related safety measures to increase public safety by prohibiting the manufacture, possession, distribution, importation, selling, offering for sale, purchasing, or transfer of large-capacity magazines, and making a violation of these restrictions. You hear that? Restrictions. They're restricting the Second Amendment right. What does the Second Amendment right say? Shall not be infringed. A restriction is infringing a gross misdemeanor offense, which, you know, if you commit such offense, they probably will take your gun rights from you. By defining large capacity magazines to apply to ammunition feeding devices with the capacity to accept more than 15 rounds of ammunition. Oh, they were so generous to, instead of 10, they're going to limit it to 15. By allowing continued possession of large capacity magazines limited to those possessed prior to June 11th, 2020. So they want this on the books by June 11th, 2020. And those inherited on or after June 11th, 2020. Subject to restrictions on the ability to sell or transfer such large capacity magazines, requiring that they be stored in secure gun storage. In other words, locked away all the time. They can't be out of your gun safe. And permitting their possession only on the owner's property or while engaged in a lawful outdoor recreational activity or at use at a licensed shooting range or when transporting the large capacity magazine to or from these locations unloaded in a separate container. In other words, you can't have it by your firearms. Now listen, what does this say? A lawful outdoor recreational activity? That's not what you dumbasses. That's not what the Second Amendment is here for. Are you guys ignorant? That's not what, go read what the Founding Fathers said the Second Amendment is for. It's not for recreational purposes, you morons. It's for defending against such people as you, government. Now moving on. It just burns me by providing limited exemptions solely for government officers, agents, or employees, or government contractors who provide firearms training to law enforcement while acting within official duties. In other words, you're the subjects, we're the masters, you do as we say. That's exactly what these people are saying. They're being subtle, is what they're doing. It's subtlety. It's saying you cannot do something without actually saying it. For licensed manufacturers and dealers for the purposes of sale of large capacity magazines to law enforcement or the military. For licensed dealers to acquire large capacity magazines from lawful owners for the purposes of sale to a resident of another state. For gunsmiths for the purpose of service or repair of a large capacity magazine. For individuals for the purpose of lawfully participating in an officially sanctioned sport shooting event or while lawfully engaged in shooting at a licensed shooting range. They use these words lawfully for a reason, because they're trying to impound it into the people who don't know no better's heads to think that the government can restrict our right to do something, which they were never supposed to do in the first place. This is a government by the people and for the people. Remember that. Not a government for the government and for itself. No, by the people and for the people. Meaning, we have the power to overturn this government and rule them unfit to serve in an official capacity. That's what that means. Okay, and then it goes on to say this. For individuals, for the purpose of lawfully... oh, yeah, I already read that. For lawful enforcements and correction officers and military members while acting within the scope of official duties. In other words, if you're off duty, you can't go out and buy it. It has to be for your job only. For retired law enforcement officers who receive a large capacity magazine in connection with their separation from service. In other words, they took it while they were being retired. And for individuals for the purposes of permanently relinquishing a large capacity magazine to law enforcement for destruction by establishing a large capacity magazine buyback program to be operated by the Washington State Patrol between July 1st, 2020 and June 30, 2021. In other words, what they're going to try to do is, because they're sneaky, what they'll do is they'll pass this bill, right, saying that anybody who lawfully owned it before the bill, which was June 11th, shall still be able to have them. No. What they're going to do after that is they're going to make it a crime for you to still possess it, is what they're going to do. And you're going to be forced to turn in your property to the government, is exactly what they're going to do. They did this in Australia. They did this in the EU. They will do it here if the American citizens allow it to happen. Okay, now where were we? Oh, yeah. Within the amounts appropriated for this purpose that allows a resident to receive compensation for up to 5 large capacity magazines in an amount determined by the Washington State Patrol based on fair market value. In other words, not full value that you paid for it. It's going to be aftermarket value, which means like maybe $3.50 per magazine, depending on the type of magazine it was. By creating a Public Records Act exempting for personal information of persons participating in the large capacity magazine buyback program, in other words, a registry, and by repealing the precious metal bullion and monetized bullion tax preference to fund the large capacity magazine buyback program. This is going to come out of the taxpayers' pockets, guaranteed. Reenacting and amending RCW .56.230, adding a new section to Chapter 9.41 RCW, adding new sections to Chapter 43.43 RCW, adding a new section to Chapter 82.04 RCW, creating a new section, in other words, turning over this one, RCW 82.04.062, which you might want to go check out what all these different bills are. Prescribing penalties, providing an effective date, providing expiration dates, and declaring an emergency. In other words, this is a national or a state emergency that people own such a thing, and be it enacted by the legislature of Washington State. And this is the new section, Section 1. A new section is added to Chapter 9.41 RCW to read as follows. 1. No person in this state may manufacture, possess, distribute, import, transfer, sell, offer, for sale, purchase, or otherwise transfer any large capacity magazine except as authorized in this section. 2. Subsection 1 of this, subsection 1, it would be up here, of this section does not apply to any of the following. And watch this. It's going to be guaranteed the law enforcement and the government. A. The possession of a large capacity magazine by a person who legally possessed a large capacity magazine before the effective date of this section, or possession of a large capacity magazine by a person who, on or after the effective date of this section, acquires possession of the large capacity magazine by operation of law upon the death of a former owner who is in legal possession of the large capacity magazine. In other words, let's say somebody left you one. Provided the person in possession of the large capacity magazine can establish such provenance. In other words, you have to prove how you got it. Did y'all keep your receipts for your large capacity magazines? I don't think so. So how are you going to be able to prove it? This is what I'm talking about. It's a very gray area. A person who legally possesses a large capacity magazine under this subsection is subject to the provisions of subsection 3 of this section, which is coming up. B. Any government officer, agent, or employee or government contractor hired to provide firearms training to law enforcement officers while acting within the scope of official duties, if authorized to acquire or possess such a large capacity magazine in connection with their official duties. C. The manufacturer offering for sell, importation, or transfer of a large capacity magazine by a licensed firearm manufacturer for the purposes of sell to any branch of the armed forces of the United States or the state of Washington, or to a law enforcement agency in this state for use by that agency or its employees. D. The possession, offering for sell, importation, or transfer of a large capacity magazine by a dealer that is properly licensed under federal and state law for the purpose of sell to any branch of the armed forces of the United States or the state of Washington, or to a law enforcement agency in this state for use by that agency or its employees for lawful purposes. E. It's pretty. This is pretty repetitive. The possession, offering, for sell, importation, or transfer of a large capacity magazine by a dealer that is properly licensed under federal state law, where the dealer acquires the large capacity magazine from a person legally authorized to possess or transfer the large capacity magazine for the purpose of selling or transferring the large capacity magazine to a person who does not reside in this state. F. The transfer to and possession of a legally possessed large capacity magazine by a federally licensed gunsmith for the purpose of services or repair, and the return of the large capacity magazine to the lawful owner. And one is going to have to wonder, how in the hell are you going to prove that you were lawful owner? G. The importation or possession of a large capacity magazine by a club or organization established in whole or in part for the purpose of sponsoring sports shooting events, again, not why the Constitution was made, and by a person for the purpose of lawfully participating in a sports shooting event officially sanctioned by such a club or organization. And H. Law enforcement officers of this or another state or local correction officers while acting within the scope of official duty, including authorized persons, possession while not on duty. So they're going to get to keep theirs, because they're better than us, is what they're saying. If authorized to acquire or possess a large capacity magazine in connection with their official duties. I. The possession of a large capacity magazine by law enforcement officers retired for service or physical disabilities when the large capacity magazine in question was acquired as part of the officer's separation from service. J. And the reason I'm reading this is because most people ain't going to go and read all this. Your average citizen is not going to want to sit there and read all this legalese. You know what? I don't give a crap. I'm reading it. J. Members of the armed forces of the United States or the state of Washington or the National Guard or military reserves, while acting within the scope of official duties, if authorized to acquire or possess a large capacity magazine in connection with official duties. K. Any persons while lawfully engaged in shooting at a duly licensed, lawfully operated shooting range, or L. The possession of a transfer of a large capacity magazine for the purpose of permanently relinquishing it to a law enforcement agency in this state. A large capacity magazine relinquished to a law enforcement agency under this subsection must be destroyed. They can't keep it. They can't offer it as a buyback. Or, like at an auction or whatever they do. We're on subsection 3 now. A. The person shall not sell or transfer the magazine to any other person in this state other than to a licensed dealer, to a federally licensed gunsmith for the purpose of servicing or repair, or to a law enforcement agency for the purpose of permanently relinquishing the large capacity magazine. And who in the hell is going to want to do that? B. The large person the person shall store the large capacity magazine in a secure gun storage. And C, the person shall possess the large capacity magazine only on property owned or immediately controlled by the person, while engaged in the legal use of the large capacity magazine at a duly licensed shooting range, while engaged in a lawful outdoor recreational activity, such as hunting. No, the Second Amendment was not made for hunting or sporting. It's for tyrants. It's to keep this freaking country free. Or while traveling to or from these locations for the purpose of engaging in the legal use of the large capacity magazine, providing that the large capacity magazine is stored unloaded in a separate locked container during transport. And they think that that criminals are going to listen to this bullshit. Yeah, right. No, this is a way to keep their subjects in check, is what it is. 4. It's about control. A person who violates this section is guilty of a gross misdemeanor punishable by Chapter 9A.20 RCW. 5. For the purpose of this section, large capacity magazine means an ammunition feeding device with the capacity to accept more than 15 rounds of ammunition, or a conversion kit, part, or a combination of parts from which such a device can be assembled. This sounds exactly like the crap that they did in California. Because I read their bills too. From which such a device can be assembled if those parts are in possession of or under the control of the same person, but shall not be construed to include any of the following. A. An ammunition feeding device that has been permanently altered so that it cannot accommodate more than 15 rounds of ammunition. How are you going to prove this if it comes up to where you're getting charged with something? How are you going to prove it? You're not going to be able to. They're just going to charge you anyways. They're trying to get rid of due process of law also, and open carry in the state of Washington. B. A .22 caliber tube ammunition feeding device, or C. A tubular magazine that is contained in a lever action firearm. New section, Section 2. A new section is added to Chapter 43.43 RCW to read as follows. 1. The Washington State Patrol shall establish and administer a large capacity magazine buyback program to allow a person in possession of a large capacity magazine to relinquish the device to the Washington State Patrol in exchange for a monetary payment established under this section. The Washington State Patrol shall adopt rules to implement the large capacity magazine buyback program according to the following standards. A. The buyback program must be implemented between July 1st, 2020 and June 30th of 2021 at locations and regions throughout the state. And listen, how much you want to bet that they're doing the July 1st, 2020 buyback program through June 30, 2021, because they're going to make it to where you can't have them, period. Guaranteed. That's why they're doing it like that. B. The buyback program must allow a Washington resident to relinquish up to 5 large capacity magazines in exchange for a monetary payment and an amount determined by the Washington State Patrol based on fair market value. C. The Washington State Patrol shall establish the method for providing the monetary payments made to individuals under the buyback program. D. The buyback program is subject to the availability of funds appropriated for this specific purpose. This section does not create a right or entitlement for a person to receive a monetary payment under the buyback program. In other words, when they're out of funds and you take that to them, they're going to take it and you're not going to get shit for it, is what it says. The program must be operated on a first-come, first-served basis, and no payments may be made that would require the Washington State Patrol to exceed the amount appropriated for this purpose. In other words, there's going to be a set amount of money that they set for this program to buy it back with. And once all them funds are dried up, anybody who taken it in after that, they're not going to get nothing for their stuff. They're just going to relinquish their property, and they're not going to get paid for it. E. The Washington State Patrol shall establish guidelines for the destruction of or other disposition of large capacity magazines relinquished under this section. 2. We're almost done. This section expires January 1st, 2022. Why? Because they're going to have it to where nobody can have anything like that by January 1st, 2022. Why? Because if you go to my other channel, which is Matthew Odell, you go to my other channel, you will find out that this country is on its last years. This country will no longer be a country by the time 2025 or 2026 hits. That's why. That's a guarantee. Section 3. A new section is added to Chapter 4343, RCW, to read as follows. The Large Capacity Magazine Buyback Program account is created in the custody of the state treasurer. All receipts from taxes collected, taxes collected and directed to be transferred pursuant to Section 4(2) of this Act must be deposited into the account. Monies in the account may be spent only after appropriation. Expenditures from the account may be used only for purposes of Large Capacity Magazine Buyback Program established under Section 2 of this Act. In other words, the law-abiding citizens who work their asses off and pay taxes are going to be paying for this program. New section, Section 4. A new section is added to Chapter 82.04 RCW to read as follows. 1. At least 1 month before the end of each quarter, beginning September 30th, 2020, the Department must calculate the proceeds of the tax imposed on taxpayers who were exempted by RCW 82.04.062 prior to the effective date of this section of Section 6 of this Act, generated for the most recently completed quarter. 2. By the last day of each quarter, beginning September 30th, 2020, the Department must notify the state treasurer of the calculations under subsection 1 of this section. The state treasurer shall then transfer it into the Large Capacity Monies Magazine Buyback Program account created in Section 3 of this Act. The amount determined under subsection 1 of this section by the beginning of the quarter immediately following. 3. This section expires January 1st, 2022. And it expires that time for a reason. Section 5. We're on the home stretch of this thing. RCW 42.56.230 and 2019 C 470 S8, 2019 C 239 S2, and 2019 C 213 S2 are each reenacted and amended to read as follows. The following personal information is exempt from public inspection and copying under this chapter. Personal information and files maintained for students in public schools, patients or clients of public institutions or public health agencies or welfare recipients. I. For a child enrolled in licensed childcare in any files maintained by the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, and this is 2 of 2, for a child enrolled in a public or nonprofit program serving or pertaining to children, adolescents, or students, including but not limited to early learning or child care services, parks and recreational programs, youth development programs, and after-school programs. 3. For the family members of guardians of a child who is subject to the exemption under this subsection, like children whose families are on welfare. 2. If the family member of the guardian has the same last name as the child, or if the family member of the guardian resides at the same address as the child, and disclosure of the family's members or guardian's information would result in disclosure of the personal information exempted under A, 1 up here, 2 up here, and 4 of the subsection. For substitute caregivers who are licensed or approved to provide overnight care of children by the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. B. Emergency contact information under this subsection. 2 may be provided to appropriate authorities and medical personnel for the purpose of treating the individual during an emergency situation. 3. What, like such as martial law? Personal information in files maintained for employees, appointees, or elected officials of any public agencies to the extent that disclosure would violate their right to privacy. 4. Information required of any taxpayer in connection with the assessment or collection of any tax if the disclosure of the information to other persons would a. be prohibited to such persons by RCW 84.8.210 or 82.32.330 or 84.40.020 or 84.40.340 or any ordinance authorized under RCW 35.102.145, or b. violate the taxpayer's right to privacy or result in unfair competitive disadvantage to the taxpayer. 5. Credit card numbers, debit card numbers, electronic check numbers, card expiration dates, or bank or other financial information as defined in RCW 9.35005, including Social Security numbers, except when disclosure is expressly required by or governed by other law. 6. Like a court order, probably. Personal and financial information related to a small loan or any system of authorizing a small loan in RCW 31.45.093. 7. And then this is A of 7. Any record used to prove identity, age, residential address, social security number, or other personal information required to apply for a driver's license or identity card. You know, the new identification cards that they got going on. B. Information provided under RCW 4620.111 that indicates that an applicant declined to register with the Selective Service System. C. Any record pertaining to a vehicle license plate, driver's license, or identity card issued under RCW 46.8.066 that alone or in combination with any other records may reveal the identity of an individual or reveal that an individual is or was performing an undercover or covert law enforcement, confidential, public health work, public assistance fraud, or child support investigation activity. This exemption does not prevent the release of the total number of vehicle license plates, driver's licenses, or identity cards that under RCW 46.8.066 in an agency or department has applied for, been issued, denied, returned, destroyed, lost, and reported for misuse. And D. Any record pertaining to a vessel's registration issued under RCW 88.02330 that, alone or in combination with any other records, may reveal the identity of an individual or reveal that an individual is or was performing an undercover or covert law enforcement activity. Now, why is it saying all this? You got to ask yourself them questions. This exemption does not prevent the release of the total number of vessel registrations that under RCW 88.02.330 an agency or department has applied for, been issued, denied, returned, destroyed, lost, and reported for misuse. 8. All information related to individual claims, resolution, structured settlement agreements submitted to the Board of Industrial Insurance Appeals under RCW 51.04.063 other than financial orders from the Board of Industrial Insurance Appeals. Upon request by the legislator, the Department of Licensing shall provide a report to the legislator containing all of the information in subsection 7, C, and D of this section that is subject to public disclosure. 9. Voluntary submitted information contained in a database that is part of the or associated with enhanced 9/11 emergency communication systems or information contained or used in emergency notification systems as provided under RCW 38.52.575 and 38.52.577. 10. Until the person reaches 18 years of age, information otherwise disclosable under Chapter 29A.8 RCW that relates to a future voter except for the purpose of processing and delivering ballots. 11. All information submitted by a person to the state, either directly or through a state licensed gambling establishment or Indian tribes or tribal enterprises that own gambling operations or facilities with Class 3 gaming compacts as part of the self exclusion program established in RCW 9.46.071 or 67.70.040 for people with a gambling problem or gambling disclosures. And that is the end of that section. Oh my gosh. Thought that was the end in 12. Names, addresses, or other personal information of individuals who participated in the bump fire stock buyback program under RCW.43.43920 and 13 names, addresses, or personal information of individuals who participate in the large capacity magazine buyback program under Section 2 of this Act. New sections, Section 6. RCW 82.04062 sell at wholesale, sell at retail, and exclude sell of precious metal bullion and monetize bullion computation of tax. And 1985, Chapter 471 S5 are each repealed. New section, Section 7. The repeal in Section 6 of this Act does not affect any existing right acquired or liability or obligation incurred under the statute repealed or any rule order adopted under that statute, nor does it affect any proceeding instituted under the repealed statute. New section, Section 8. Sections 6, 7, and of this Act are necessary for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, and or safety, or the support of state government and its existing public institutions, and shall take effect April 1st, 2020. And that is House Bill 2947, their sneaky, unhanded, cunning attempt to try to sweep this under the rug and impose a magazine restriction here in Washington State. Anyways, sorry if that was tedious, but it had to be read because most people ain't going to read it in the first place. So, in closing, I'll say this. You need to contact your representative if you live in Washington State and tell them hell no. No, you guys already lost your chance for this year. You're not doing this shit. Tell them that. Anyways, y'all have a good day and God bless.